Honorable Ministers, my other colleagues on the high table, development members of Parliament here present, members of the Diplomatic Corps and development partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, and let me take this opportunity to start with a narrative on economic and social development that I think we can easily lose sight of in the midst of our current macroeconomic challenges. That narrative is around growth and what growth requires to propel it further. But just to make sure that we all have the same perspective on Ghana's achievement on this front, let me start off with just a few basic features of what Ghana has managed to accomplish over the last few years, and some of the things that might stand in the way of Ghana being able to do more and to deliver more going forward. Ghana has seen remarkable and in many ways enviable growth in its economy over the last 10 years. Growth has been underpinned by favorable global markets, by increasing productivity, and a relatively strong governance and business environment. And of course, the advent of oil a few years ago. Just in terms of numbers, per capita output growth has accelerated for around 2.5% per annum between 1983 and 2006, a pretty decent rate of growth. This is per capita before you take account of population growth, which has been of the order of around 3%. So this is in many ways enviable growth in any context, and certainly was in the African context. This growth has accelerated to a average per capita growth rate since 2006 of around 6% per annum. This is stellar growth. This growth didn't come from anywhere. This growth has been underpinned by fundamental factors, some of which I referred to earlier on. While there is clear room for improvement, and there is the attendant need to be vigilant about possible reversals in performance, Ghana today outranks nearly all African countries in the World Bank's Doing Business rankings. For those who don't know, Ghana ranks 67 in the world, outranked by only 4 countries in Africa: South Africa, Tunisia, Botswana, and Mauritius. These are really important indicators of where Ghana stands relative to global and African peers in terms of certain very important indicators of the ease of doing business, certain fundamental factors that ease and enable investments and economic activity to take place in its spatial domain. Ghana also supersedes many upper middle income countries in the World Bank Institute's governance indicators. These are rankings with respect of countries, with respect to the rule of law, government effectiveness, political stability, voice and accountability, etc. Ghana outranks many upper middle income countries in this index. Ghana, in other words, outperforms its own tier by the way in which we rank countries by GDP per capita. So Ghana is an oversized performer on this indicator. These two things in particular underpin any country's capability and ability to grow and to sustain economic welfare. Recent work that we have done at the bank, by recent I mean we completed and disseminated this work a few months ago. This recent work points clearly to Ghana's potential to grow at the recent high rates of growth that we have seen for at least the next decade. The potential is very clearly there, particularly if Ghana continues to maintain and improve its good governance indicators, which I've just referred to. It continues to be able to accomplish the rate of investment that it has managed over the last 10 years. That's not spectacular, but it's adequate. But if this assumption that this projection that Ghana will be able to continue to grow at rates at which it has been growing, it can in fact do more if it can exceed the rate of investment that it has achieved and the rate in underlying productivity growth in the economy. And of course, this projection is based on the supposition, which I think is very realistic, that the expected growth in oil output based only on discoveries already made and development plans in place and in prospect are achieved. So under these conditions, which are not very challenging, Ghana should be able to sustain what will continue to be an enviable and an extremely good rate of growth. There are, of course, headwinds, and there are, of course, risks to this scenario unfolding. But we are very clear that government is clearly attentive to these risks and headwinds and to the need to manage and mitigate them. Some of these risks and headwinds, you know, the macro challenge represents one. The volatility of commodity markets represent another. But these are challenges that are within the grasp of government. Now, with that as background, I think this brings me to the next few days' events. The adequacy and quality of infrastructure will be one of the major constraints on both the country's overall growth as well as on its ability to diversify the economy to mitigate the risks of dependence on a narrow set of volatile commodities and commodity markets, and also to create the new and sustainable sources of jobs. In this regard, while Ghana's infrastructure platform is pretty good and is pretty advanced by low-income country standards, it falls well below the levels found in Africa's middle-income countries. Bridging the infrastructure gap, as the speakers that preceded me have pointed out, will require both substantial additional investment as well as substantial improvements in infrastructure service delivery efficiency. Those things go hand in hand. It's not only more that you need, but you need to use what there is better. In this regard, leveraging private sector investment and operational and management expertise will certainly be critical. Again, as the preceding speakers have pointed out. So this is not a new realization on the part of government. In fact, it is fully embraced by government. And in this context, let me acknowledge the progress that government has made in practical terms in building the basis for attracting private sector capital and expertise to the task of bridging the infrastructure gap. Amongst other things, and some of these have already been pointed out, a national PPP policy has been in place since 2011, and a PPP law has been fully drafted and subjected to extensive public consultation. It is now in Cabinet, I understand, awaiting final approval. And we certainly look forward to its early enactment. Secondly, structures for the delivery of PPPs are being built, and the key elements, in our view, of an effective institutional arrangement are in place and functioning. We at the World Bank look forward to these arrangements being strengthened in the light of evolving experience and drawing upon the extensive experiences of other countries, including African peers. A third area that is worthy of being pointed out, which my preceding colleagues have also pointed out, is that Ghana today, government today, has developed a pretty strong pipeline of projects in ports, roads, and water. And notably, transactions advisory services have started or at an advanced stage of preparation for some key potential early projects. In this specific regard, we would very much like to encourage government to selectively focus support and resources on a few of these identified bankable projects to bring them, in order to bring them to completion and market, and to start to establish successful trailblazers that will inspire and build market confidence in the Ghana PPP program. Finally, in terms of achievements so far, the foundation being built by government, we very much welcome the creation of the Ghana Infrastructure Fund and its very clear objective to reinforce the drive to attract long-term financing to infrastructure. We recognize and encourage government's objective to maximize the impact of the Ghana Infrastructure Fund by, in particular, leveraging in private and international financial institutions like mine and some of the other development partners that are here, capital, that our capital as well as private capital, to the task of funding infrastructure and to the task of funding infrastructure in co-partnership with the private sector in a robust PPP framework. Let me mention, honorable ministers, before I close my remarks, that although the focus so far of what I've said is on infrastructure and on growth in general, let me highlight one very important feature of the Ghanaian growth experience and a very important part of the narrative that we should all bear foremost in our mind. Growth in Ghana, unlike in many other countries, has been very, very strongly and very clearly accompanied by poverty reduction and improved outcomes on health, education, and other social indicators for the population overall. Starting with 52% poverty headcount in 1992, Ghana's poverty headcount today is around 20%. The final numbers that will be available soon will confirm that, but it has come down very dramatically on the back of growth. And with poverty coming down, government has also increased social services provisions fairly dramatically. Going forward, PPPs also have a role in enabling government to be able to do more in this area, to mobilize the resources again, the capital and the expertise from the private sector to accelerate and the improvement in both the quantity and the quality of service provision. Let me end there by stating that the World Bank Group, the World Bank, the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, and MEGA, our risk insurance outfit, will continue to partner strongly with government through all phases of mobilizing the private sector to the task of executing, including financing, Ghana's public investment program. Thank you so much.